Hello. Today, we'll calmly and clearly explain why blue cheese is completely safe to eat and take a detailed look at how it's produced. We'll answer key questions: how noble mold differs from harmful mold, what strict technological processes guarantee product safety, and how this famous delicacy with its unique flavor and texture is created from ordinary milk. You'll receive not only a scientific explanation, but also a practical understanding that will allow you to confidently choose and eat these cheeses. Blue cheese is one of the most paradoxical foods on our tables. On the one hand, we're taught from childhood that mold on food is a sign of spoilage and a serious health hazard. On the other hand, we see exquisite, expensive cheeses on supermarket shelves, streaked with blue veins or covered with a white, velvety coating, considered delicacies. This contrast raises legitimate questions. Why does mold kill in one case, while in another, it creates a unique flavor? How can we distinguish a noble culture from a dangerous one? And most importantly, how do technologists transform a potential threat into a safe and delicious product? The solution to this paradox lies not in cooking, but in microbiology and strictly controlled technology. The safety and taste of blue cheese are not a coincidence, but the result of targeted work with specific, domesticated species of microscopic fungi, whose growth conditions are carefully calibrated. In this article, we will examine the scientific basis of this process. Step by step, trace the cheese's entire journey from milk to the matured wheel, and explain the safety guarantees that eliminate any risks. You will learn what makes Roquefort, Gorgonzola, and Camembert not only edible, but also truly magnificent. Mold is a microscopic fungus, and there are tens of thousands of species worldwide. The vast majority are harmless to humans, and many are even dangerous, producing toxins, mycotoxins, that cause poisoning. However, through extensive evolution and selective breeding, humans have managed to domesticate several unique species that are not only safe, but also capable of creating exceptional flavors. These species are known as noble or cultivated mold. Two main heroes are used in cheese production. The first is Penicillium roqueforti. This mold is responsible for the famous blue and greenish veins within the cheese. Its spores, added to the milk, develop during ripening, creating the characteristic sharp, piquant, and slightly spicy flavor we associate with Roquefort, Gorgonzola, or D'Or Bleu. This mold is unique in that it can thrive in low oxygen conditions within the dense cheese mass. To achieve this, the cheese wheels are pierced with steel needles, creating a system of microscopic channels through which a small amount of air enters. This is sufficient for mold growth, but not sufficient for the development of aerobic pathogenic bacteria. The second key species is Penicillium camemberti. This culture works differently. Its spores develop not inside, but on the surface of the cheese, forming a characteristic white, velvety fluff. This rind is not just decoration, but an active biochemical factory. The mold secretes enzymes that gradually penetrate the cheese, breaking down proteins and fats. This process, called proteolysis and lipolysis, completely changes the texture and flavor of the product. The cheese transforms from grainy and elastic to delicate, creamy, and even runny. And its flavor acquires complex mushroom, onion, and ammonia notes, characteristic of Camembert and Brie. Why are these species safe, unlike, say, black mold on the wall or green mold on bread? It's all about their metabolism. Through evolution and selection, cultivated molds Penicillium roqueforti and Camemberti have lost the ability to produce mycotoxins, harmful to humans in the cheese environment. Moreover, they create an environment around themselves by altering pH levels and producing natural antibiotics that inhibits the growth of foreign, including pathogenic, microflora. In other words, noble mold isn't just harmless in itself. It acts as a natural protector of cheese from other, dangerous microorganisms. The origin and purity of the mold cultures is critical. Modern cheese factories don't rely on the natural introduction of spores from the air, as might have been the case centuries ago. Today, they use strains isolated and preserved in special microbiological collections, a kind of microbial library. These strains have been thoroughly studied. They are known to be non-toxin producing, and their biochemical activity is predictable. Before being added to milk, the culture is propagated in sterile laboratory conditions, producing a pure spore or mycelium concentrate. This ensures that only the desired fungus, without any interfering microbial neighbors, is introduced into the process. The discovery of these cultures is often linked to unique geographical conditions. For example, Penicillium roqueforti was a natural inhabitant of the limestone caves of Roquefort in France, where the cheese of the same name was originally matured. Cheesemakers noticed that cheeses left in these caves developed a unique mold and flavor, and began to deliberately use the spores from the cave walls. Penicillium camemberti is believed to have been isolated from the natural environment of Normandy. Over time, strains were improved through selective breeding for faster and more controlled growth. Thus, the safety of blue cheese is ensured not by magic, but by a rigorous scientific approach. The use of specific, well-studied, and safe microscopic fungi that transform a simple dairy product into a culinary masterpiece. This is the result of a symbiosis of centuries-old traditions and modern microbiological knowledge. Blue cheese production is a precise sequence of operations, with each step critical to achieving the desired texture, flavor, and most importantly, the safety of the final product. The process begins with the selection and preparation of milk. Cow's, sheep's, or goat's milk is most commonly used. Pasteurization is key at this stage. Many traditional cheeses, such as the original French Roquefort, are made from raw milk, which cheesemakers believe produces a more complex and distinct flavor thanks to the natural microflora. However, this production process requires stricter standards for raw material quality and hygiene. Most modern industrial cheeses, and many farmhouse cheeses, are made from pasteurized milk. Heating to 72-75 degrees Celsius for 15-20 seconds destroys pathogenic bacteria, Salmonella, Listeria, E. coli, while preserving the nutritional properties. This is a fundamental guarantee of safety from the very beginning. After the milk is prepared, starter cultures are added. This is done under strictly controlled conditions. First, lactic acid bacteria, Lactococcus, lactobacilli, are added. Their job is to initiate the fermentation process. The bacteria feed on lactose and produce lactic acid. Increasing acidity helps the milk curdle and also creates an environment unfavorable for the growth of undesirable microorganisms. Then, and this is the key step, noble mold spores are added. For future blue cheese, these will be Penicillium roqueforti spores, and for white cheeses like Camembert, Penicillium camemberti spores. These spores are supplied to producers as laboratory pure, standardized frozen or lyophilized concentrates. Their precise dosage is the key to a predictable result. Next, rennet or other coagulants are added to the warm milk with the cultures. The enzyme causes curdling. The milk protein casein separates from the whey, forming a dense, gelatinous curd. This curd is then carefully cut into small cubes with special knives. The finer the cut, the more whey will separate, and the denser the final texture of the cheese. For soft blue cheeses, the curd is often cut quite coarsely to retain more moisture. The resulting mass, grain floating in whey, is placed in perforated molds, where it compacts under its own weight, and the remaining whey drains off. The next mandatory step is salting. The cheese is either immersed in brine or rubbed with dry salt. Salt serves several functions. It enhances the flavor, promotes the formation of a dense crust, slows the growth of foreign microflora, and, crucially, regulates the humidity inside the cheese, preparing it for ripening. Then comes the most important and time-consuming stage, maturation or affinage. This is where the mold spores awaken and begin their work, and the cheese develops its character. The processes for blue and white cheeses differ. Blue cheeses, Roquefort, Gorgonzola, Stilton, are placed in special chambers with a cool temperature, and very high humidity, around 95%. After a few days or weeks, the wheels are pierced with long steel needles. This creates a system of air passages. Oxygen entering through these passages activates the spores of Penicillium roqueforti, and the famous blue veins begin to grow inside the cheese. The mold spreads from the inside, gradually consuming lactic acid, which softens the flavor and changes the texture. White cheeses, Brie, Camembert, are aged under different conditions. They are kept in less humid chambers, around 85–90%, at a temperature of 10–14 degrees Celsius. The key difference is oxygen access. In this case, it should freely flow to the surface, but not into the cheese. This allows Penicillium camemberti spores to grow on the rind, forming a smooth, white, velvety layer. This mold rind acts as a biochemical reactor. The enzymes it secretes, proteases and lipases, slowly penetrate from the surface to the center, breaking down proteins and fats. This transforms the dense cheese mass into a delicate, almost liquid, creamy texture with a distinctive mushroom aroma. The entire ripening process lasts from several weeks to several months and is constantly monitored by master affineurs who monitor humidity, temperature, and mold development, turning the cheeses and adjusting the conditions. Only in this way can a safe and complex delicacy be created from simple curdled milk. The safety of blue cheese is not a side effect, but a planned and strictly controlled outcome. In industrial production, this safety assurance begins long before the milk reaches the production line and continues at every subsequent stage. The first and fundamental barrier to any risk is the origin and quality of the mold cultures themselves. The Penicillium roqueforti and Penicillium camemberti strains used in the food industry are not taken as is from nature. They are the result of years of selective breeding and are stored in international microbial collections. Before use, these strains are repeatedly tested in laboratories for the absence of genes responsible for the production of mycotoxins, such as patulin or ochratoxin. Producers purchase these tested cultures as standardized concentrates from specialized companies, guaranteeing their purity and predictable behavior. This eliminates the main risk, the introduction of wild, toxigenic molds into the product. The second critical level of control is production hygiene. Facilities where blue cheeses are produced are designed and operated to requirements similar to pharmaceutical standards. Air is supplied through a filter system that traps spores of foreign microorganisms. Equipment and room surfaces are regularly sanitized. Personnel wear protective clothing. This sterility is necessary to ensure that the introduced pure culture of noble mold does not encounter competitors such as wild mold fungi or pathogenic bacteria, e.g. Listeria monocytogenes. If such contamination occurs, the foreign microorganism can begin to develop alongside the noble mold, making it undetectable until a poisoning outbreak occurs. Therefore, microbiological monitoring of air, surfaces, and intermediate products is ongoing. The third powerful protective factor is the parameters of the ripening process itself. Noble molds create an environment inhospitable to most dangerous competitors. Penicillium roqueforti actively consumes oxygen within the cheese, creating microzones with a low oxidation reduction potential where aerobic pathogens cannot develop. Both types of mold significantly increase the pH of the environment, reduce acidity during the later stages. But in the early stages, the initial acidity created by lactic acid bacteria is critical. This acidity suppresses the growth of undesirable microflora in the first few days. Furthermore, some strains of noble molds are capable of producing natural antimicrobial substances, further protecting their environment. Master affineurs constantly monitor the temperature and humidity in the ripening chambers, as the slightest deviation can disrupt the microbiological balance. It's the combination of these factors, the use of pure cultures, sterile production conditions, and complete control over ripening parameters, that explains why it's impossible to make a safe substitute for blue cheese at home by simply allowing regular cheese to develop any moldy growth. A home environment is non-sterile, exposing the product to a complex array of wild microorganisms, the composition and properties of which are unpredictable. Even if the mold visually resembles noble mold, it is highly likely to contain dangerous strains capable of producing toxins. Such cheese cannot be heat-treated. Mycotoxins, unlike mold cells themselves, are resistant to high temperatures. Therefore, the only guaranteed safe option is to buy cheese produced in a professional facility, where all risks are controlled through engineering solutions and constant laboratory monitoring. Store-bought blue cheese is a product of high technology, not a random, natural process. The unique flavor and texture of blue cheeses are a direct result of the biochemical activity of noble fungi. The processes they initiate are complex and sequential. Mold enzymes, primarily proteases and lipases, act like natural scissors. Proteases break down long chains of milk proteins, casein, into shorter fragments, peptides, and free amino acids. These amino acids, such as glutamate, are responsible for the umami flavor, creating that deep, rich, meaty, or brothy character. Other amino acids, upon further breakdown, can produce ammonia-like, mushroomy, or even oniony notes, particularly characteristic of mature camembert and brie. Lipases simultaneously attack milk fats, breaking down triglycerides into free fatty acids. These acids are the source of the piquant, sharp, peppery, and even slightly sour notes, so prized by lovers of blue cheeses. The combination of protein and fat breakdown products creates an incredibly complex and multifaceted flavor palette that is impossible to reproduce without the involvement of mold. The texture changes as the chemicals react. The broken down protein loses its rigid structure, and the released fat softens the mass, resulting in a cheese that ranges from a delicate creaminess to the almost liquid texture of a perfectly ripe cheese. Regarding health benefits, it's important to separate facts from common myths. The primary nutritional value of blue cheese, like any cheese, lies in its high content of easily digestible protein, calcium, phosphorus, B vitamins, especially B12, and vitamin A. The fats in this cheese are generally well emulsified. However, the common belief that noble mold itself acts as a powerful probiotic, similar to kefir grains or lactobacilli in yogurt, is an exaggeration. Most mold cells and their spores are destroyed when passing through the harsh environment of the stomach. Their direct impact on the human gut microbiome is not as significant as that of specialized lactic acid bacteria. The main benefit of this mold lies not in the living cells, but in the enzymes it produces in the cheese, making its nutrients more readily available for digestion. It is important to remember that due to their high fat and calorie content, as well as their significant sodium, salt content, these cheeses should be consumed in moderation. As with any concentrated and flavor-rich product, the psychological barrier is one of the biggest challenges for beginners. Our innate aversion to moldy food is a powerful evolutionary defense mechanism against poisoning. Understanding the process's controllability and the right tasting tactics help overcome this. Avoid starting with the strongest, most ammonia-laden examples. The best entry point is soft and creamy cheeses with white mold, such as young brie or camembert, whose rinds haven't yet acquired a strong aroma and whose texture is delicate. Among blue cheeses, you can start with less pungent and creamier options, such as Door Blue or soft Gorgonzola. Serve this cheese not on its own, but in the right culinary environment. Pairing it with a sweet element, pear, fig, honey, or nuts, walnuts, pecans, balances the savory and salty qualities. Crispy bread or a neutral cracker help to properly distribute the flavors. It's also important to trust your senses. If the smell seems downright unpleasant, chemical, or reminiscent of high concentrations of ammonia, the cheese may be overripe. A perfectly ripened blue cheese, even with a vibrant aroma, shouldn't evoke a sense of rejection, but rather a healthy curiosity and appetite. Gradually familiarizing yourself with it allows you to reprogram your perception, shifting the category mold kabasarn danger to mold samambasarn complex and interesting flavor. The world of blue cheeses is diverse, and the key to understanding this diversity lies in the type of mold used and the method of its cultivation. All cheeses can be divided into 3 broad categories, but only 2 of them are directly associated with noble mold. The first and perhaps most famous category is blue cheeses with internal mold. They are united by the use of the mold Penicillium roqueforti, which develops within the curd. Classic examples have a protected designation of origin, AOP PDO, which guarantees their traditional production in a specific region. Roquefort is the king of blue cheeses. By law, it can only be produced from raw sheep's milk of certain breeds of sheep in the Rouergue region of southern France. It is aged in the limestone caves of Cambalu, where the natural microclimate and the presence of the right mold spores create unique conditions. Roquefort has a crumbly, moist texture, a sharp, salty flavor, and a vibrant aroma. Gorgonzola is the Italian answer. There are two main types: Gorgonzola dolce, delicate, creamy, less aged, and Gorgonzola picante, more dense, grainy, sharp, and aged. Made from cow's milk, Stilton is a famous English blue cheese that, by regulation, can only be made in 3 counties: Derbyshire, Leicestershire, and Nottinghamshire. It has a crumbly texture and a buttery flavor with spicy notes, less salty than Roquefort. Dore Blue is an example of a modern industrial blue cheese, not tied to a strict geographical location. It is characterized by a very soft, almost pasty texture, and a delicate and less aggressive flavor, making it an excellent entry point for beginners. The second category is soft cheeses with white mold, surface mold. Penicillium camemberti is at work here, forming a velvety, edible rind. Camembert from Normandy is the most famous example. True Camembert AOP is made from raw cow's milk. It is characterized by a fluid, almost liquid texture when fully ripe, as evidenced by the rind giving under the fingers, and an intense mushroomy aroma, which, with maturation, becomes more ammoniacal. Brie, often called the king of cheeses, has a more delicate and buttery taste compared to Camembert, and a less pronounced ammoniac note. Its texture is also creamy, but more elastic. Both Camembert and Brie should be eaten at room temperature to fully develop their flavor and aroma. It's important to mention a third, often confused category: washed cheeses. These aren't blue cheeses in the classic sense, but they have a distinct, often sticky, orange or pinkish rind. This rind is formed not by mold, but by specific bacteria of the genus Brevibacterium linens, the same bacteria that live on human skin and are responsible for the odor of sweat. During the ripening process, the wheels of cheeses such as Livarot, Epoisses, and Munster are regularly washed with brine, beer, cider, or brandy. This creates a moist environment favorable for the growth of these bacteria, which inhibit the development of mold and impart an extremely piquant, sharp, and sometimes ammonia-like flavor and a powerful aroma, sometimes reminiscent of socks. Despite the strong odor, these cheeses are safe and highly prized by gourmets. Therefore, when choosing blue cheese, it's important to focus on key characteristics. Blue cheeses offer a spicy tang and a crumbly or creamy texture. White cheeses offer a delicate creaminess and a mushroomy bouquet, and washed cheeses offer bold, avant-garde flavors and aromas for the discerning. Understanding these basic differences will help you not only confidently choose cheese at the store, but also create thoughtful cheese platters where each type takes its rightful place, complementing each other. Today, we've seen that blue cheese is the result of precise science, not chance. Its safety is guaranteed by the use of special, tested mold cultures, sterile production conditions, and strict controls at every stage, from milk to ripening. The difference between noble mold in cheese and dangerous mold in spoiled food is fundamental. The former creates a complex flavor under technological control, while the latter produces toxins. Understanding this, you can confidently include such cheeses in your diet, appreciating them as safe and exquisite delicacies born from the union of tradition and modern knowledge.